There's a quiet kind of strength that doesn't scream, doesn't demand attention, but walks into a room and shifts the air. It's not loud, but it's undeniable. That's what it means to have a powerful aura. And here's the thing, not everyone will know what to do with your energy. Some will feel inspired, others intimidated. Many just won't understand it at all. But the truth is, when your light is fierce, it will challenge every shadow around it. And when your soul refuses to shrink, people either rise with you or recoil. That's not arrogance, that's alignment. And being in alignment with your power will cost you comfort, relationships, and approval, but it will give you something far greater: peace, clarity, and truth. There's a turning point in life where you stop editing yourself for the comfort of others. You stop trying to be agreeable just to avoid tension. You stop sacrificing your truth on the altar of belonging. That's when authenticity isn't just something you strive for, it becomes the only way you know how to breathe. Being unapologetically authentic means you no longer shrink yourself to fit into rooms that were never built for the fullness of your spirit. You've peeled back the layers, expectations, roles, conditioning, and what's left is raw, honest, and deeply real. You don't perform anymore. You don't put on masks to make people like you. You show up with your flaws, your fire, your scars, your wisdom, and you own all of it. This kind of presence can be jarring to people who are still pretending. Your honesty feels disruptive in spaces built on surface level conversations. Your vulnerability feels too intense for those who aren't ready to go deep. And your clarity can be mistaken for arrogance by those who are still lost in confusion. But here's the truth. Authenticity is not about being loud or always speaking your mind. It's about living from the inside out. It's about staying aligned with who you are, even when it costs you connection. It's about refusing to betray yourself to keep the peace. And yes, it can be lonely. Sometimes the price of authenticity is disapproval, distance, and discomfort. But the reward, it's inner freedom. It's being able to look in the mirror and say, I'm proud of who I am, even if they don't get it. Authenticity is the most powerful vibration you can carry because it liberates others just by existing. You give people permission to be real simply by refusing to be fake. So stay rooted in your truth, even if it shakes the room, even if it makes others uncomfortable. You weren't born to be palatable. You were born to be powerful. And powerful doesn't always mean loud. Sometimes it's just quietly refusing to betray who you are. There comes a sacred moment in your personal growth when you stop needing the world to clap for you in order to feel worthy. You stop looking outward for the affirmation that you used to chase like oxygen. And that shift, it's not loud, but it's revolutionary. You realize you no longer have to prove your goodness, your strength, or your intelligence to anyone. You stop adjusting your voice so people will listen. You stop filtering your ideas to make them more palatable. You let go of that unconscious habit of waiting for someone to say, yes, you're doing it right. Because now you trust your own inner knowing more than their applause. Seeking validation is a survival pattern, one many of us learned early on. We were taught that love was earned, that belonging had conditions, that approval was the currency of acceptance. So we performed, we pleased, we contorted ourselves into versions that made others more comfortable while quietly abandoning the truest parts of ourselves. But not anymore. Now your validation comes from within. You've done the work. You've sat with your shadows, faced your fears, made peace with your past. You've realized that not everyone will understand your choices, your healing, or your boundaries, and that's okay. You don't live for their approval. You live in alignment with your soul. You've learned to affirm yourself in silence, to celebrate your own wins, to rest when you're tired, not when others say you've earned it. You no longer need someone to get you in order for your voice to be valid. Your worth is not a debate. Your truth is not up for consensus. And yes, this shift can be threatening to those who are still chasing validation themselves. When you no longer seek their approval, they may interpret it as arrogance, distance, or rejection, but you know it's not that. It's freedom, it's peace, it's the unshakable calm that comes from knowing you are already enough. You don't need a stage, a spotlight, or an audience. You just need to stay anchored in your own truth, and that, more than anything, makes your aura magnetic. Because in a world obsessed with being seen, you found the courage to be self-defined. When your energy is grounded, honest, and powerful, it often becomes a mirror reflecting to others not just your strength, but everything they're avoiding within themselves. You don't have to speak a word. Just your presence, your clarity, your peace. It can make people deeply uncomfortable, not because you've done something wrong, but because you remind them of everything they haven't healed. It's not arrogance, it's not ego, it's alignment. And alignment can be unsettling. When you've done the inner work, you carry yourself differently. You no longer chase chaos, prove your worth, or over-explain your boundaries. You walk into a room with a kind of quiet confidence that says, I know who I am, and I don't need you to agree with it. That kind of self-assurance can feel threatening to people who still rely on external validation to feel whole. Your peace challenges their need for control. Your confidence exposes their self-doubt. Your authenticity makes their performance feel hollow. And here's the thing, they may not even realize what's happening. It often plays out in subtle ways. They withdraw, they criticize, they gossip, they project, or they accuse you of thinking you're better than them, when in reality, you're just not available for the same old patterns anymore. Insecurity doesn't always come with an admission. It shows up as distance, judgment, or passive-aggressive behavior. But you can feel it, that shift in the room, that subtle tension, that discomfort when you speak your truth or hold your boundary. And for a long time, you might have tried to dim yourself to avoid it. You might have softened your voice, hidden your wins, downplayed your growth just to stay likable. But eventually you understand this. Their insecurity is not your responsibility. You're not here to make people comfortable at the cost of your truth. You're not responsible for how your light makes others feel, especially those still living in darkness. You're allowed to be powerful. You're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to thrive, even if it reminds someone else of where they're still stuck. The truth is, your presence will either inspire people to rise or threaten them into retreat. Some will use you as a reason to evolve. Others will use you as a reason to criticize. But neither has anything to do with your worth. So keep showing up, keep being seen, keep owning your truth. Because the right people won't be intimidated by your power, they'll be energized by it. They won't shrink in your light. They'll shine beside you. You've always felt things deeply. While others skim the surface of life, you dive beneath it, searching for meaning, connection, truth. You don't settle for small talk or emotional shortcuts. You want to know why people feel what they feel. You want to touch the core of things. You're not afraid of the dark spaces inside the human heart. You've learned to sit in them, to breathe through them, and to find beauty in the brokenness. And that kind of emotional depth, it's rare, it's raw, and it's not for everyone. Most people are conditioned to run from their emotions, to numb, distract, and avoid. They were never taught how to hold sadness without shame, how to face anger without destruction, how to walk through grief without feeling weak. So when they meet someone like you, someone who can hold space for all of that, it unsettles them, not because you're unsafe, but because you're real. And real can be terrifying for someone still hiding from their truth. You're the kind of person who sees beneath the mask. You notice the pain behind the smile. You ask questions others are too afraid to ask. You listen not just to words, but to tone, to energy, to the spaces in between. You feel deeply, love deeply, and hurt deeply. And you carry all of that with grace. But your depth also means you won't tolerate shallow relationships. You can't pretend. You can't fake laugh through toxic conversations. You can't smile through betrayal or ignore emotional red flags just to keep the peace. And because of that, some people will call you too sensitive or too intense. But that's not a flaw. That's your gift. You've learned to sit in your own emotional storms. You've cried when others told you to be strong. You've admitted fear when others pretended to be fearless. You've told the truth when it would have been easier to stay silent. And you've discovered that emotional depth doesn't make you fragile, it makes you powerful. Because being emotionally deep means you've faced the parts of yourself that most people are still running from. It means you've walked through your own fire, and now you can help others do the same without losing yourself in the process. Yes, your emotional presence might overwhelm some people. They'll feel seen in ways they aren't ready for. They'll be invited into conversations they haven't had with themselves. But that's not a reason to hold back. That's a reason to keep going. You weren't meant to fit into emotionally shallow spaces. You were born to bring depth, truth, and healing into a world that desperately needs it. Let your emotional depth be a sanctuary for yourself first and for those brave enough to meet you there. There was a time when saying no felt like betrayal. A time when protecting your peace felt selfish and drawing a line made your heart race with anxiety. You were taught, either directly or through experience, that being nice meant being available, agreeable, and endlessly self-sacrificing. You were conditioned to believe that love meant overextending, that compassion meant self-abandonment, and that boundaries were barriers, not bridges, to deeper, healthier connection. But not anymore. Now you set boundaries, and you do it without guilt. You've come to understand something powerful. Your energy is sacred. Your time is limited. Your emotional capacity is not infinite. And being a kind person does not mean being a doormat. It doesn't mean saying yes when your soul is screaming no. It doesn't mean being responsible for everyone's comfort while quietly drowning in your own discomfort. You set boundaries now, not because you don't care, but because you care deeply about yourself, your healing, your peace. You've learned that constantly saying yes out of fear of disappointing others is actually a quiet form of self-betrayal. And you're no longer willing to betray yourself to make someone else feel okay. And yes, some people don't like it. Some people were never interested in a healthy version of you, only a convenient one. Some preferred the version of you who overgave, who overexplained, who never pushed back. But here's the truth. When you begin setting boundaries, it exposes the people who benefited from your lack of them. And it's not your job to carry their reactions. Your job is to stay rooted in what is right for you, even if it makes others uncomfortable. You no longer explain your boundaries endlessly. You don't feel the need to defend them like they're up for negotiation. You simply state them with clarity, calm, and courage. Because boundaries are not walls, they are doors. They say, this is how I can love you without losing myself. They say, this is how I stay well while staying connected. They say, this is how I honor both of us. And the most beautiful thing, when you set boundaries from a place of self-respect, you start attracting people who respect you too. The ones who don't take your no personally. The ones who don't test your limits but honor them. The ones who see your self-worth and rise to meet it. So no, you don't feel guilty anymore because guilt is no longer your compass. Integrity is. And every time you protect your peace, you reinforce a message to your soul, I matter too. And that message, it echoes in your aura. It speaks before you even say a word. There's a quiet power in knowing who you are and why you're here. It doesn't always come with fireworks or dramatic moments. It often arrives after a series of inner battles, silent awakenings, and painful shedding of who you were never meant to be. When you are unshakably rooted in your purpose, something in you changes. You stop looking for direction outside yourself. You stop getting thrown off course by every distraction, opinion, or rejection. You stop seeking approval because you're already anchored in meaning. Purpose isn't always grand or glamorous. It's not always about a career, platform, or spotlight. It's deeper than that. Purpose is that inner compass that keeps you grounded when the world tries to pull you in 100 directions. It's the steady voice inside that whispers, this is why you're here, even when everything else feels uncertain. It's the fuel behind your boundaries, the reason behind your resilience, the why behind your no. When you're rooted in purpose, you don't chase noise, you follow clarity. You don't try to fit in, you walk in alignment. And that scares people who are still wandering through life without direction. Your certainty makes their confusion feel louder. Your intentional choices can trigger their avoidance of responsibility. You become a walking mirror of what it looks like to live with meaning, and not everyone is ready to confront the absence of that in themselves. But still, you don't waver. You no longer need every detail to be figured out to move forward. You trust your path even when it's quiet, even when it's misunderstood, even when people question why you've changed, pulled back, or walked away. You're no longer available for the things that don't nourish your spirit or serve your calling. Your decisions now come from alignment, not obligation. Your energy goes to what's life-giving, not what's draining. And that shift, it radiates through your entire being. Your aura carries a calm confidence that says, I may not be understood, but I'm aligned. You're no longer asking, what will they think of me? Instead, you're asking, is this in integrity with who I'm becoming? And yes, this will cost you. So you will outgrow spaces. You will lose people. You will walk alone at times. But the peace that comes from living in your truth, that's priceless. When your purpose becomes your foundation, you become unshakable. Storms may come, people may leave, challenges may rise, but you don't fall apart because your life is not being built on approval or applause. It's being built on truth, on calling, on soul. And that kind of life, that's unbreakable. So keep walking in your purpose even when it's misunderstood, especially then, because those who are meant to walk with you will recognize the light in your path and they'll rise to meet it. When your aura is powerful, truly powerful, it won't always be embraced. It will challenge people. It will stretch them. It will mirror what they haven't yet faced within themselves. And because of that, you may be misunderstood, misjudged, or even pushed away. Not because you are wrong, but because your presence refuses to conform. But let this be your reminder, you were never meant to dim, to be digestible. Your truth, your intensity, your emotional depth, your clarity, these are not flaws. They are evidence that you've done the work, that you've stepped into your power, that you've stopped asking for permission to exist fully and started giving yourself the freedom to be whole. You live with intention, you speak with conviction, you feel deeply, you protect your peace, you walk in purpose. And yes, that will be too much for some people. Let it be. Because your job was never to make yourself smaller. Your job is to be light in a world that hides in shadows. Your job is to stay rooted when others drift. Your job is to be real in a culture that rewards performance. The truth is, the ones who are meant for you won't just accept your energy, they'll rise to meet it. So keep showing up, keep shining, keep honoring the power in your presence. Because when you stop diluting your essence, the right people, your people, will feel it in their soul and say, there you are. And that right there is the beginning of something truly sacred.